Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. We're just gonna jump straight into Lightroom. All right, so we have the raw photo right here, and this is kind of, what we're kind of going for. This one's a little bit too dark, I think, after I did it. I'm not really a fan of the way this looks, so we're gonna tweak it, but this is kind of the look we're going for anyways. So we have the raw photo. I'm going to crop it because I don't like that you can see that she's only, a couple feet underwater. So I wanna make it look like she could possibly be, a little bit further underwater, add a little bit of mystery to it. So I'm going to crop it, and I'm gonna crop it 4:5 for Instagram. Somewhere right here, just so you don't see that the top of the water is right there. And we can kind of play around with it, but for now, I think this is gonna be just fine. So I'm gonna start with the basic panel right here, and I'm probably gonna bring this temperature down just a little bit because there's a little bit of green and I'm not really a fan of that. So maybe just around like 4, just to get rid of some of the greens and the blue, because I really like the blue. Probably do like more of a dark blue for this photo. And then the first thing I'm gonna touch is the blacks. So a lot of times for GoPro photos that are taken underwater, you're gonna have to bring the blacks down to get the contrast. So I think for now, somewhere around 35 looks good. And then I'll probably come back and visit a lot of these panels once we kind of go through them all. Yeah, so let's move on to the tone curve. And this is not the best photo, kind of got a lot of mushiness to it. Quality's not that great, but what we're gonna do is try to hide a lot of that. So we're gonna try to darken these areas right here and put a fade on it. So I'm just gonna bring this up to maybe like 24 for now. And I'm gonna put a mark on the shadows, the midtones, and the highlights. And I'm gonna pull down the shadows. Kind of just play around with it. I think somewhere right there. And then the midtones, I think somewhere right there works for now. And then the highlights, I might just keep those about where they're at. So before and after, kind of just darken up these shadows. And then what we're gonna do is just make the subject kind of a little bit brighter, make it pop a little bit better. But you can see just the difference that made. There's a lot more contrast in the photo, and it hides a lot of that mushiness. So now moving on to the color panel, I'm not gonna do a whole lot here. The blue is very bright, which I do like, but I'm just gonna mute them just slightly and then pull them towards the dark blues. So just a tiny amount. And then same for the blues. And you can see, I don't even know if you can see it, but there's a very slight change to it. Just makes it a little bit moodier, makes it not quite as bright. And then we're gonna move straight into color grading. And what I'm gonna do is just try to get rid of a little bit of the green that's in this photo and make it a little bit more blue. So what I like to do is just take the shadow adjuster over here, let's put it like in the middle. That way I can kind of see what colors I'm doing. And then just find the blue that I like, and I think somewhere around there, then pull it back. Then just bring it to where I think it looks pretty good. So maybe somewhere around there. And then I kind of do this with all of them. Kind of spin it around. And these are gonna be the mid-tones, so I wanna try to put a little bit of warmth on the skin tone. So I'm gonna put those around the orange, just until I find where I like. So somewhere, I think right there. And that's just, there's a whole lot of blue in this image, so that's just gonna take the blue off the skin tone and then add a little bit of color. So I think somewhere around there looks pretty good. And then we'll take a look at the highlights and see what we want to do there. So because of highlights, there's the light coming through, it gets really dark. So I want kind of a gradient where the bottom of the image is a little bit darker blue and then it kind of brightens up towards the top. So I don't want to go too dark like this. I want to keep it a little bit brighter, maybe around there. And then not a whole lot there. So if we just look at the before and after, again, not a huge difference. You can really see it in these shadows and the skin tones. Just adds overall blue look, but doesn't put the blue on the skin tone. Makes it look a little bit more natural. So let's go into the details. I'm just gonna put the sharpening around 60 for now. Hit option, and then try to get the subject as much as I can without getting any of the other noise. There's a lot of bubbles that it's selecting, but I think that's gonna be okay. So I wanna kind of just look at that a little bit further up close. So it's before, everything's kind of just a little blurry. And that's just gonna sharpen it up a little bit. So I think that looks pretty good. There is quite a bit of noise in this photo, but a lot of it's just like this weird, I don't know what you would even call this. This looks pretty bad. We're gonna have to do this in Photoshop. If we try to remove this with the noise reduction, it's not gonna work. And then the photo is already kind of mushy to begin with, so I don't want to add a whole lot of noise reduction, if any. I might just leave it around 9. I'm not going to do anything with lens correction. I'm not going to do anything with the transform. The vignette, I'm going to do that manually with a mask, and I'm not going to add any grain to this photo. So I think before I do anything with masking right now, I'm gonna try to get rid of this. Again, not sure what you would call this, but it looks terrible. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna right click this, edit in Photoshop, full screen. Then I'm gonna take this lasso tool, just try to get as much as I can. Something like that. Then we're gonna go to filter, noise, and dust and scratches. I'll move this over here so you can see. And I don't want it to look this good because then you're gonna see a little bit of a harsh line. So I'm just gonna lower the threshold. Oh, sorry, I'm gonna up the threshold. To maybe like 15, and just kind of play around with this a little bit. I think somewhere around there looks pretty good. And then I'm just doing this kind of fast, but if you were to actually do this, you know, spend a little bit more time and try to get it as perfect as possible. If you look at the before and after, you can see it makes a huge difference, but at the same time, there's not like a really harsh line. It's still, got a little bit of the noise in it. So I think that looks pretty good. So we'll just Control, save that. All right, so now that we're back in Lightroom, first thing I'm gonna do is add a little bit of vignetting to this, and I'm gonna use a radial gradient. And I'm gonna make it look like there's more of a light beam coming in right here. So I'm gonna take that radial gradient, invert it, and just drop the exposure a little bit. Really, I'm dropping it until I get these bottom corners, these shadows, kind of where I want them. So I think somewhere around there looks pretty good. Now I'm going to add another radial gradient, do the exact same thing, except this is going to be the actual light source. So we're just gonna up this. Till somewhere around there. And again, you can play with this more, but that's the idea of it. Last thing I'm going to do, select the subject and then just brighten the whole subject up a little bit, not too much. I think around 22 looks pretty good. And then all together, if you look at the before and after with the mask, you can see it just looks like there's a light source shining down from the top to the bottom, which I think looks pretty good. So I think that's all I'm gonna do to this photo. It's looking pretty good in my opinion. All I need to do is now export it and post it, but I'm gonna wait because I have a couple other photos that I need to edit before this. Thanks again, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you learned something. If you did, hit that like button, consider subscribing if you're not already, and I'll see you in the next one.